seriously popular.
It's Monday again in MAGAland, and as usual, things have not stopped moving for an hour since I last saw you.
I don't think that I'm able to keep up with every new twist and turn of the Trump tariff saga that we're seeing today, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens even in the hour that we record this podcast.
We're going to try to keep it as updated for our listeners, but keep in mind things are moving quite fast today as we're sitting here. Of course, we're going to be talking all the updates on the tariffs and Trump's new message for China, as well as how his approval rating has been affected by this chaos. We're also going to be discussing these protests against the GOP and President Trump. We're going to be telling you about a new term that Trump has coined. It's a panicking and how it relates to these tariffs. We're going to end with an update on Jack Schlossberg and his distasteful Usha Vance joke yet again. But first, at the top, we're going to have an amazing conversation with a Generation Z political commentator and activist, Brett Cooper, right after this break.
It's tourney time, and with FanDuel's Dog of the Day, you can get a daily profit boost during the College Conference Championships to bet on any underdog. So get ready to celebrate some upsets.
No one saw that coming, except for me, baby.
21 plus in present in select states. Opt-in required. Minimum plus 100 odds required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome to MAGAland.
We're back in MAGAland, and we're excited to be joined today by Brett Cooper. Brett, thanks so much for being on with us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We'd love to start off by talking a little bit about Gen Z's influence over MAGAland in general. We saw on the campaign trail that Barron Trump had the ear of his father, the president. He was encouraging him to get on podcasts, get on new media platforms to really boost him with Gen Z voters. And we saw that turn out well for him in the election. And it's still continuing to be really good for Trump now in his second term, engaging more with Gen Z. So want to get your perspective on why Gen Z is so important and what MAGA is doing to capitalize on getting them on their side.
For sure. Well, I think that Barron really had the right idea, and I think that he understood what our generation is interested in. And I think that he was able to sum it up for his father and drive the campaign in that regard. Because when you look at our media landscape and you see it changing and you see, this departure from legacy media and a lack of trust and a focus more on podcasts like this and podcasts like Rogan and Theo Vaughn and Sean Ryan, that is really driven by Gen Z, and we just consume media in a totally different way. I think it's the same way that we get a lot of our news and information on TikTok. We have debates on TikTok. That's where we go to engage in society and culture. And Barron and the Trump team knew that, and so they helped Trump lean in a major, major way. I mean, Trump dominated TikTok, and it was just incredible to watch, and they still are. They have a really, really aggressive social strategy that has done incredible things for reaching Gen Z, and I think that it'll only continue to grow if they continue to lead into it. I think the reason why it worked was because it was genuinely funny and authentic. They weren't trying to preach towards people. They were not speaking down to people. It wasn't like they were trying to be cool. Like the things that they were doing, the edits that they were making, people that Trump was talking to are genuinely people that my generation is interested in. So I think that it'll only continue to grow from there. Gen Z is important. We are becoming a huge voter base. We also are very ideologically passionate, regardless of what side of the aisle we're on. And you have to capture us if you want to win these elections. And obviously, that happened last year. And you saw men move to the right. You saw women even move to the right. Obviously, more Gen Z women did vote for Kamala, but there was a huge swing to the right. And I just think that speaks volumes.
We always talk here in MAGAland the huge change between the first Trump term when it was automatic cultural cancellation if you were a celebrity and you said you like Trump versus what we have now. We just saw a picture of John Stamos, beloved by America for Full House at Mar-a-Lago, and I'm sure his career will be fine. That was not the case the first time around. I think this Generation Z support and the TikTok vibes and all of this is all part of this. So tell me, what specifically have the Democrats done so wrong that traditionally it was the Republicans who were cringe? It was the Republicans who annoyed young people with their morals and ethics and all of that. Now it has changed. Now it's the Democrats who are cringe. What is it that the Democrats just don't get about the young people of this country and that Republicans have figured out?
I think that it is such a myriad of things, and that really is the big issue that the Democrats are going to have to address over the next couple of years if they want any hope truly. I think the biggest one is that they completely lost touch with their voter base. They weren't speaking to normal American Democrat voters, the Democrats who care about equality and care about low cost of living and care about the working class and support the everyday man. I think that they watch their party become more and more extreme and radical and speak to a very small percentage of people, and it being driven by elites. And they realize, you're not actually speaking to me. And then here walks a man like J.D. Vance, who can speak to any man, any woman in the entire country because he's been there. And he is like a living embodiment of the American dream. And you look at Donald Trump, who's a billionaire, but he can also speak
Tell us about that, because with J.D. Vance, it's easy to say that he gets it. But Trump's charm.
I know.
Why?
Well, yes.
How?
It's because he's genuine. He's not playing any games. You can despise Donald Trump, but you know exactly where he stands. Like, you might disagree with him, but he's never lying to your face about the things that he believes. And that has honestly hurt him sometimes on the right, because they'll say, actually, guys, I'm not the most pro-life president in the entire world. The very conservative voters will freak out, but they at least know where he stands. He's not playing games with them. And on the left, the biggest example of that was that they didn't even give their voters the opportunity to vote on who would run for office in 2024. They installed Kamala Harris. And so you see all these voters looking around and going, do you even care about us? Is this actually about representing American voters in the Democrat Party? Or is it about money and corruption and putting the people in office that you want to see? And so I think that there was just this complete combustion. I also think that for Gen Z specifically, we're young. We are teenage, young adult, starting families, just graduated college. Young people want to rebel. That is just normal young person psychology. I look at my friends who are more on the left, the people that I've grown up with, and I feel like a lot of them looked around and went, okay, we have been trying to like rage against the machine, but actually we've been supporting the machine.
I think that's a big part of it, right? Like, now the rebellious thing to do at least 4 years ago was to be a conservative.
Yes. And now it's kind of cool. It's kind of edgy. It's why you see that New York Magazine cover saying the Cruel Kids Club. It's like, that would have never happened in 2016. And obviously they still called MAGA the Cruel Kids Club. But if you read the article, it was actually kind of glowing. The writer was walking around going, these are actually like really cool people. They're all really hot and they're really smart. And this party is really fun. That would have never happened in 2016. And so I think there has completely been a shift. And a lot of these young people who think critically, that do care about the working class, that care about raging against the machine, they just naturally came to the right.
You mentioned J.D. Vance as a really good influencer on the MAGA right side. Who do you think are others that Gen Z is particularly drawn to? And who has the best TikTok presence? Who has the best Instagram reels?
I think that other Republicans need to be better on TikTok for sure, because I don't think we have as much of a presence. Like, I look at people like AOC with her Instagram lives, and she's just super active with her community. I think that more conservative politicians should lean into that. But the person that I always look to, and this isn't on Instagram, it's not on TikTok, but my favorite follow on X is Thomas Massie. And he has this hashtag like sassy with Massey, and it's everything from his personal life and his family and his regenerative farm to politics. Rand Paul is another one, but he's less like personable with his social media, but leaning into things like that where you're actually talking directly to your voters and you're giving them a glimpse into what's happening behind the scenes in DC. And I think that it's super important because we're at a time when, again, people are so fed up with the lies. They're fed up with the corruption. They're fed up with the government bloat. I think that's why people were so excited about Elon and Doge. They want the curtain pulled back. And politicians like Trump and like J.D. Vance and like a Thomas Massie who tweets all day long telling us exactly what's going on in Washington. I think that is super important, but I wish more of them were on TikTok. And I know that that might be controversial for a lot of Republicans that want TikTok banned. But again, that is where Gen Z is. That's where we get our information. We want to see you face to face. We want you looking in our eyes through the camera, telling us exactly what's going on and not bullshitting us, basically.
Sounds like they could use a class on Capitol Hill for how to do it better. Because I think Markwayne Mullin and, the senator down in Alabama, Katie Britt, those two are the younger generation of senators. I don't think they've truly capitalized quite yet on how to have a really good social media presence. I think they're trying, but I could see them trying to give AOC a run for their money down the road.
For sure. And that's necessary because AOC is powerful. She's a very captivating person. She's a very genuine and authentic seeming person. She doesn't lie about her beliefs. I always say, she's never lied and said that she's not a socialist. She's always very upfront.
Well, she lies and says Norway is socialist in the way that Bernie does. But
things like that, yes. But she speaks to her voters as people. She doesn't speak down to them in a way that people like Biden and Kamala do. And I think that's very powerful. And the right just needs to keep leaning into genuine, authentic conversations and meeting voters where they're at, which is, I think, why we won in 2024.
And speaking of AOC, because here we're always looking at the Democrats and how they're scrambling to fight back against the GOP after the November election. We are not giving them good gradings. They continue to waste opportunities. So we have been discussing the two angles Democrats are taking. We have AOC on one side, who is, as you said, she's good on TikTok, but she is a socialist. And then we have Gavin Newsom, who seems to be changing strategies and listening to the people that they're over the woke madness. However, I saw a tweet of yours that I thought was really funny, that Gavin Newsom, our culture is not your costume, like a play.
Yes. Yeah, he's culturally appropriating Republicans. That's the thing with Gavin, that it's like, he's such a slick politician. I don't know if I trust him. I don't know if I trust him being a centrist. Is this you listening to the people of California and the people of America and saying, okay, maybe I've been a little bit extreme, maybe we took this too far? Or is it him wanting to run for president and going, ooh, crap, obviously what I've been doing has not worked. Obviously, these radical extreme ideas are not as popular as I assumed they were. He's looking at these huge podcasts run by men with long form conversations. And he's going, that won Trump the presidency in 2024. I've got to do that.
It sounds like he's taking your advice.
I know, exactly. He's reverse engineering this authenticity. He's reverse engineering this media strategy. Time will tell if it works or if it is genuine.
But who do you think has a better path? What strategy? AOC's, let's go full socialist, but be good on TikTok? Or Gavin Newsom, who's a more politician, but he is listening to this advice of you got to sit down with the other side?
It's funny. I think that Gavin Newsom's angle will work better for the Democrat donors and the elites in the DNC who will help usher him in. But I think that AOC will speak to the people. I think that Gen Z, I think that they resonate with her. They gravitate towards her. They don't like Gavin Newsom. My generation does not trust Gavin Newsom. So I think that there's going to be a split there. I think that we're going to see again in 4 years that there's a split between what the DNC wants and the extremely wealthy tech DNC elite donors and what the socialist Gen Z, my peers, want, which is AOC for sure.
Define to me what a new MAGA conservative is, because you are absolutely right, but most people might not understand this, how someone that supports Trump might find AOC's message resonates with them because of this economic populism that Steve Bannon talks about. So what does a new conservative believe in? Because it's not the freest market. We have tariffs right now. It's, as you said, Trump is not the most pro-life president. So what defines a MAGA young new conservative?
I think when I look around the landscape, and particularly with what you're saying, this is not somebody who is like very historically conservative, might be a new Republican voter, a young person that's moved over from the left. I think that the main things that these people want and that they're interested in are a lower cost of living. They want support for the working class because they're tired of seeing the middle class disappear. And they want transparency and they want a lack of corruption. They're looking at our government and going, I don't actually know what goes on in Washington. Why am I being taxed to high heaven every single month when I get my paycheck, seeing this money disappear and I am not benefiting from it in the slightest? If I'm not benefiting from it, then where is my money going? And again, I think that's why Doge was so powerful in this campaign cycle, because so many people looked over and they were like, we've been voting for something else that's been promising us all of these social programs and all of this welfare that's going to make our communities better and stronger. And it is only turned to madness. I think they want a stable economy. I think that they want, yes, support for the working class and the middle class, and they want transparency. And I think that many of them probably do have more conservative values, but they might not be the most conservative or most religious person. They just want common sense. And they probably are tired of the extremes that are being pushed by the left. They look at Kamala Harris and they're like, actually, I don't think I want to pay for gender transition surgeries for minors. Like, that's kind of insane. We've gone a little too far. So they're like squarely in the middle. They want common sense. They just want their lives to be better.
It's interesting, though, because it seems to be more about the vibes, because AOC 1,000% is more leftist than Kamala, but you are right that she is received better.
It's about authenticity. It is about the fact that Kamala has basically put on a million different hats for the last few years and tried to be a different woman, has tried to backtrack on all of her ideas and her values, has tried to hide what she did as vice president because she had a terrible track record. And AOC, it's just completely different. She just hops on Instagram Live and chats like Kamala would have never done that. If you look at her big interview that she did during the campaign cycle, Call Her Daddy with Alex Cooper, that was supposed to reach the women like me, reach the Gen Z women, it was like 45 minutes. And she had approved questions and there was no deviation. That's not somebody who is genuine. So it's just a very different. It is about vibes. It's about authenticity. And Gen Z is all about the vibes for sure.
Brett, thanks so much for coming on MAGAland.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
We'll be right back after this break. So we're sitting here awaiting whether it's going to be, Black Monday or not?
Yep, Black Monday fears have totally shaken the world. This morning, the stock market opened and markets were tanking across the United States, sending Americans into panic as they're checking their 401ks and their saving accounts across the country. And we've heard from Trump a lot this morning so far. He's really been on a true social terror. He is not backing down from his tariffs. He says they will all go into effect as planned on April 9. And he even threatened fresh tariffs on China up to 50%, he said today. Actually, just about 30 minutes ago, he announced, because China hasn't canceled their retaliatory threat on the United States. So that is a major escalation that we're keeping an eye on. We also have the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, is here in Washington, D.C. He's meeting with Trump today. He's hoping to strike a net zero tariffs deal with the president so that Israel has a good deal. And it looks like Israel could be the first country that gets that deal with Trump. We're expecting to see some sort of announcement coming out of the White House during their press conference later this afternoon. So Trump's meeting and speaking to leaders of over 50 countries over the weekend. We saw him golfing down in Florida. So he was relaxing, but he was also taking a ton of calls as world leaders were really freaking out.
Let's hope that this deal with Israel does work. I think no one would reject a 0-for-0 trading with other countries. I think the EU has said already that they are ready to offer the same deal. However, 50% on imports from China will hit our pockets again. Particularly, I get really freaking hot in the summers here in New York City, and I'm going out today and I'm buying my AC before April 9th hits, because I've been reading that items like electronics like that will really be affected.
I think though on the China tariff, it also has the interesting, weird nuance of the TikTok deal being held up because of these tariffs. Trump's trying to get that deal through the door, a purchase of TikTok, so that Americans can still have access to the popular app. But at the same time, he's using tariffs as a bartering measure in that deal. And then, of course, the trade war. So there's a lot going on at once with China.
But the chaos caused by the misinterpretations of an interview by Kevin Hassett is the most MAGAland I've seen in a while. The newsroom was quite confused for a little bit. Some editors weren't sure what was actually happening. And this is what happened. Kevin Hassett gave an interview on Fox News. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Will you do a 90-day pause? Would you consider that?
Or Bill, yeah, I think that the president is going to decide what the president's going to decide. There are more than 50 countries in negotiation with the president. We've got the Prime Minister of Israel coming today. We've had a reach out overnight from Taiwan. And but I would urge everyone, especially Bill, to ease off the rhetoric a little bit. The fact is that say 10% baseline tariff is on 14% of GDP. That's about how much trade we have, how many imports. And so 86% of GDP is affected by the deregulation and the tax cuts and everything else. And even if you think, and I think a lot of us at the White House think that these economic responses are exaggerated by critics, even if you think that there will be some negative effect from the trade side, that's still a small share of GDP. And so the idea that it's going to be a nuclear winter or something like that is completely irresponsible rhetoric.
After this interview, I believe what happened is a Twitter account with a bunch of followers interpreted this as Trump is considering pausing the tariffs again. This goes viral. The stock market reacts immediately, goes up 500 points. Then the White House says this is not true. This information is not correct. And immediately the stock market reacts again and plunges.
We actually reached out to the White House to get clarity. They're calling this fake news. So Trump is not considering this 90-day pause, according to our White House sources. It appears that it was just taken out of context. And if you actually listen to his clip, he doesn't for sure confirm that Trump's looking into this. He's said along the lines of Trump will be Trump. We'll see what comes out from him, which as a Trump advisor, that's a phrase we hear a lot because as we know, Trump changes his mind and there may be discussions with certain advisors that others aren't privy to. But I do think that this shows that there's a massive internal MAGA civil war going on because we're seeing different lines of speech from Trump's top advisors, from Peter Navarro, from Hassett, we just talked about, also from Elon Musk. He says that he wants a better deal for EU. So there's a lot of crossed wires, crossed lines when it comes to messaging out of the White House on the tariffs right now, which I don't think is good for the White House. And I think Trump needs to get his people in line. He actually started attacking all of the people going against him or deviating from his line that the tariffs are amazing. And he called them panicans. This is a new line that I'm going to start invoking in my everyday term against my enemies. The panicans are out and about. They're trying to tank him. It is interesting because it's really the first time we're seeing Trump comment on internal strife among the MAGA members.
Right. But that's what happens when you have such a big umbrella, as we were just talking to Brad Cooper, when you have people who believe in the free market and when you have other people who are kind of indistinguishable from a socialist, you're going to have people who disagree. I want to touch on Elon Musk again, because we always talk about Musk is really good at dealing with Trump. And he did say, I believe in a free market. I want no barriers for trade. But he did it without criticizing Trump in words. Let's take a listen.
I hope that the United States and Europe can establish a very close partnership. We obviously are, there's an alliance already, but I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. And I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America. And that would be that's what I hope occurs.
It's kind of like Trump's oligarchs, as Steve Bannon would call them, versus the MAGA populists. I always mention Mike Cernovich because he always gives me an inkling into what the populist base is thinking. That base is saying, we don't care about the stock market. Real Americans don't have stocks. This is rich people talking about this. We want jobs to come back for Americans, and we don't care about the stock market. Again, this could be AOC saying it. But Trump also has under his umbrella the rich tech billionaires and investors. And I want to point out Bill Ackman is one of the people who have been declared as panicans by the other Trump side. He's doing it again without criticizing Trump. And I thought this was some crafting of a message. He says, the formula used by the Trump administration to calculate tariffs made other nations' tariffs appear 4 times larger than they actually are. President Trump is not an economist and therefore relies on his advisors to do these calculations so he can determine policy. The global economy is being taken down because of bad math. That's how the big money billionaires are treating this issue, not going after Trump directly, but saying, hey, guy, I like you, but you're getting bad advice. Saying that it's down to bad math, I mean, I don't know about that. We have a new poll, and Trump is up. Kelly, was this poll conducted after the tariffs chaos? What?
We did an exclusive dailymail.com poll. This poll was started on March 31st. So it went from March 31st through April 4th. And Trump announced his tariffs on the 3rd. Part of the poll was conducted before the tariffs were announced on Liberation Day. We did know they were coming, though, because Trump had been teasing them during that time period. There were some actually surprising findings because we've seen the stock markets melt down. We've seen that Americans are concerned about their 401ks. But it appears that Americans really do have their faith in the president. They actually had a more positive view of President Trump amid this tariff drama than they did just a week before when we did our most recent poll. And they also were largely favorable of these tariffs. They're interested in seeing how they play out based on what Trump has promised. As he has said, it's going to be short-term pain, but long-term prosperity. So to me, it was pretty shocking to see these stats come out because they're really not what we're seeing in the meltdown on cable television. Even lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they haven't given us too sour of a response on Trump, particularly the pro-MAGA lawmakers. We've seen some more in the middle who are saying this might not be best for the country. But largely, the pro-Trump group, they're in line with the president on this, and they're not going to step out against him on it. I don't think they want to get on the president's bad side during this process in particular because he's going to lash out at them. He's going to come for them in the midterms next year, and there's a lot on the line for these Republicans who would go against Trump.
Perhaps this poll shouldn't be so surprising because it all remains in theory so far, right? I think these things don't really take a turn until people actually show up to the grocery store and are upset by how much they're paying. So we'll have to see the next one after April 9th and how people really feel this in their pockets. I also wanted to note, and I should have done this before, but as President Trump continues speaking against the countries that he says are screwing over the United States, he's basically saying that he wants reparations from the EU. Again, this could be AOC, you know what? But they say it over different reasons. AOC would say Europe has to pay reparations for being colonizers, and Trump says you got to pay reparations because you've been screwing us over for decades with the economy.
Maybe AOC and Trump are more similar than we think.
I find that interesting. It's called horseshoe theory. Once you go far left, you encounter the far right very quickly. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics and questions of the universe. Because the Kennedy heir, Jack Schlossberg, is back at it with his way that he believes is the way to fight Trump, which is just to say crazy things that make no sense, that have nothing to do with politics or policy or the tariffs. He could be talking about Trump's tariffs. He could be doing videos with his handsome face saying this is going to be expensive, but no. Right now, his way of getting attention is announcing that he's having a son with J.D. Vance's wife, Usha.
It's so out of touch. What is going on here? He's just starved for attention. He's trying to stay relevant. This was so absurd. It made no sense. It's gone to another level. And it's not funny. It doesn't make sense. What is he trying to achieve? He's not helping the Democrats. He's not helping his family.
Again, he claims that he wants to capture Gen Z's attention. But if you're trying to do something like that, wouldn't you include some type of political message too? There's never a political message he's trying to push. If I were him, I'd be like, okay, I'm having a kid with Usha Vance. And by the way, the tariffs are going to do this. But he doesn't even do that.
It's not like it's a statement on her going to Greenland or accompanying her husband on a recent trip or anything. It just seems so out of the blue and just really like off-putting and off base.
And Meghan McCain made a good point, which is if this was the son of a conservative family, I would say the Bushes, but that doesn't count because they're not MAGA. But yes, if this was a right-wing person, they would be saying like, someone get him help. This is not normal. Is he okay? Conservatorship. But no, because he's a handsome Kennedy, he's still doing interviews with places like People magazine, like he is someone whose political opinion should matter in any way.
It's very weird. So hopefully we won't hear too much more from him.
We're going to be back on MAGAland on April 9th when the final shoe is supposed to drop. So we'll see what will happen then.
Yeah.
Until then, remember to follow us on Instagram at Welcome to MAGAland and email us at welcometomagaland.com.